All right, welcome in to another episode of Farscast. Farzine Vasugian here with you on a Wednesday night. Hope you're all doing well, having a great week. We are getting closer and closer to kickoff, less than a month away. The first preseason game takes place this Sunday, so very excited to talk about all of that with you and much more. A lot of things to get into here on this episode of the Chief Zone. A lot of things to get into here. The preseason game on Sunday against the Saints. I'll give you my three keys, and not keys to win the game. Obviously, you're not looking to win the game per se in the preseason. Yeah, sure, a win's nice and all, but three things that I'm going to be keeping my eye on. Three keys for the Chiefs, and every Chiefs fan should keep an eye on for Sunday's game. We'll talk about that. The first depth chart, unofficial depth chart for the Kansas City Chiefs came out earlier this week. I'll give you guys my initial reactions to that. There's a little bit of a Chris Jones update. We'll touch on that as well. There's also a Chiefsaholic update, the gift that keeps on giving. Yes, Chiefsaholic. This is actually going to be a very surprising update. Maybe not too surprising, but if you haven't heard the news yet, your jaw will drop when you hear this one. It's very interesting. Plus, we got to get into the whole Eric Bieniemy drama with what's been going on in Washington and the story that has come out there. Not very good, but the reaction, a lot of people have been coming to Eric Bieniemy's defense. A few speaking out against him, but a lot of people defending Eric Bieniemy with the story in Washington, and I think that deserves a topic of conversation here on this podcast. Hope you're all doing well. If you guys haven't done so already, go over to SeatGeek.com. Get yourself some tickets. You all know football season is coming up pretty quickly. So go to SeatGeek. Whatever it is you want to do. You want to catch a Chiefs game? You want to catch a football game somewhere else? Doesn't have to be in Kansas City. You want to go to a concert? You want to go to a comedy show? Whatever you've got going on in your neck of the woods, you can go to SeatGeek.com, purchase your tickets, and at checkout, use the promo code Farzine for $20 off. This is only good for first-time customers or only. So go to SeatGeek.com, get your tickets, and at checkout, use the promo code Farzine. Get yourself $20 off. How can you go against $20 off? Come on. So go out there and get yourself some tickets and use that promo code. Save yourself $20. All right. A lot of things to get into here tonight. Sorry for doing the live broadcast a little late. If you guys are watching the video version, you'll notice the first few seconds, some awkward silence. We were trying to get some things figured out. All good now. So, like I said, a little time to waste. So let's get right into it. It shouldn't be a very long podcast. A lot of things I do want to get into here. So let's get right into it. The Kansas City Chiefs will play their first preseason game on Sunday against the Saints. I believe it's going to be a noon kickoff game, Central Time. So should be very interesting to see. The Chiefs will be going up against an old foe, Derek Carr. Yes, believe it or not, Derek Carr. If you told me the Chiefs would be facing Derek Carr in a preseason game a year ago today, I would have had no idea what to tell you. Can't say I am too shocked, though, given the state of events. But nonetheless, we don't really care too much about their side of things. But I think a lot of people have some things that they want to keep an eye on. I've got some things that I definitely want to zoom in on for this game here. First and foremost, we got to see the offensive tackles here. The Chiefs did a lot in trying to bring in Orlando Brown a few years ago, giving up some draft capital to bring him to Kansas City. Just didn't work out at the end of the day. They also had Andrew Wiley, who they kept around on the offense for a few years. Just didn't work out with them. They were numbers 1 and 2 in the NFL among offensive tackles in pressures allowed. So what if the Chiefs were to make a change there? Well, that's exactly what they did. They let OBJ and Wiley walk. They brought in Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor. At first, a lot of people thought Jawan Taylor was going to be a left tackle. Then when they signed Donovan Smith, who has far more experience at the left tackle spot, a lot of people thought, okay, looks like the Chiefs are paying a lot of money for a right tackle. And I have got no problems with that. You want to protect a franchise quarterback? I don't think there is a limit for that, that kind of price right there. You got to do what you got to do to protect the franchise quarterback. And you already know what you're getting with your interior offensive line. This is by far the best interior offensive line in the NFL. So a lot of people just want to see what the offensive tackles are going to look like. I want to see some good pass protection. That's what I want to see. Go out there for a drive, likely, maybe two. Let's see some good pass protection from Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor. I would love to see that in the first preseason game. Second thing I want to see, let's go to the other side of the line of scrimmage, the defensive line. There are a lot of interesting things happening right now with the defensive line. I'll get into the depth chart a little bit later because I do think it is notable to read some of the things on there. And again, it's unofficial. It's a first depth chart, so nothing to really go crazy about. But I will say, I do want to see this defensive line. You got George Karlaftis coming off a very good second half of his rookie campaign after a very slow start in the first half. What is he going to do? What is he going to look like having that rookie season behind him? You got a rookie this year in an FAU, Felix Anudike-Uzomah. What is he going to look like? And when is he going to play? Because he's in a very interesting spot on the depth chart. You got another rookie there who the Chiefs drafted out of TCU. His name escapes my mind right now. Bear with me. BJ Thompson. Oh, no, he didn't go to TCU. Stephen F. Austin. So my apologies there. You also got Truman Jones. You got Derek Nottie. Danny Shelton, who the Chiefs brought in about a year ago this time from the not San Francisco, the New York Giants. I think he's a very interesting name. Keandre Coburn, another rookie at the defensive line. I'd like to see a little bit of him as well. With Chris Jones not with the team right now, what is this defensive line going to look like? And again, like I said earlier in the podcast, we will get into Chris Jones later on, as there is a little bit of an update there on the Chris Jones front. Not a big update, but an update still worth talking about. So we'll touch on that shortly, but I want to see what this defensive line is going to look like. Derek Nottie right now is the most experienced defensive lineman, at least the most tenured Chiefs defensive lineman. So he is going to be the leader of this little group here, which I think is going to be interesting. We don't really talk about Derek Nottie a whole lot. So I'd like to see what he could do in a leadership role, trying to anchor this defensive line. And then the third and last thing I want to see the cornerbacks. I really want to see how they're going to do. Your top two quarterbacks right now, Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed. No surprise there. Trent McDuffie, your first-round draft pick from last year, didn't really have the rookie season he wanted to have, got hurt very early on, but you had other rookie quarterbacks step up. Jalen Watson did really well. You had Joshua Williams, who played very well at that position. Nazeed Johnson, unfortunately, his season came to an end earlier in training camp when he suffered an injury. So, and this was a guy who was getting some reps with the ones, according to Spags. So, what is the quarterback group going to look like here? What are they going to do there? Especially when you got Nick Jones, who the Chiefs got in the draft this year. How much could he contribute? Chiefs have a lot of young guys, a lot of rookies as well. You got Connor, one of the safeties, Lamar Jackson, not that Lamar Jackson, a different Lamar Jackson, Isaiah Norman, Anthony Witherstone, Khalif Halassi, I believe is how you say his name, Reese Taylor. So many young guys in this position group. Boy Doe, so many young guys, so many rookies in that secondary, especially the quarterbacks. So I'd like to see how they're going to do in their first stab at a preseason game. So I'm very curious what you guys are looking forward to the most. Let me know what you guys think is the most intriguing thing for you this preseason game on Sunday. What is the one thing you guys are looking forward to the most? And I'll read some of those comments towards the end of the podcast, so keep that in mind. I'll get to the depth chart in a moment, but I did want to say something. I forgot to mention this. Former Chiefs tight end Jason Dunn will be on the podcast Monday night, 8:00 Central Time. Yes, you heard that correctly. Jason Dunn, former Chiefs tight end who played with the Chiefs during the Dick Vermeil era in the early to mid 2000s, obviously better known for his blocking abilities as a tight end. He's also doing some great things podcasting with my good friend Marcus, doing the Chiefs podcast over at the Believe Podcast Network. So Jason's going to be on the podcast on Monday. I've had him on my Farscast podcast a couple of times, and he's been pretty good. I believe I said Farscast at the beginning. I still have not gotten used to that. I still making that mistake. I've not gotten used to bringing back the Chiefs zone yet, which is great, but I need to definitely eliminate that. But nonetheless, Jason Dunn is going to be on the podcast Monday. I already have a post up on the Facebook page as well as Instagram. If you guys have any questions for Jason, anything you guys want us to talk about, let me know in the comments. And keep in mind, I might not get to every single question that you guys would want. I'm already seeing a lot of great questions on there. Some maybe not as interesting, but hey, nonetheless, I do appreciate you guys letting me know what you want to hear from him. And I promise to bring you guys more player interviews, former player interviews, that is. Current players, not as easy to do, but certainly we'll try to work at that at a later time. But definitely going to make an effort to bring on a lot of former players on the podcast this year. So if you guys haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast and try to tune in for our live version when we do that. So normally we record on Wednesdays, and we still will continue Wednesdays podcasts, but we will do player interviews here and there, just basically whenever their schedule allows them to do that kind of thing. So Jason Dunn will be on the podcast Monday. Very excited to talk to him. Jason's always got a lot of great thoughts, very articulate. He's also a coach. He also coaches the NFLPA. I believe it's the NFLPA Bowl. Yeah, it's the NFLPA Bowl. So I got mixed up between that and the Senior Bowl, but I believe it's the NFLPA Bowl. So definitely excited to talk to Jason about all of that, his perspective as a former player and now as a coach as well. So we'll talk to Jason Monday. Again, that is at 8:00 Central Time. If you missed the live version, it'll immediately be archived late that night. So no worries if you guys are not able to check out the live version of that. All right, let's move on here. And I did want to move forward and talk about the depth chart here. Let me try to put the depth chart on here for those of you watching the video version of the podcast. There we go. So here is the depth chart. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes. I'm sure that is shocking to all of you. Behind him is Blaine Gabbert, Shane Buechele, and then you got Chris Oladokun, who is the number 4 QB on the depth chart. You look at the running back position. This one, I can't say I was too surprised by this, but you got Isaiah Pacheco, despite still wearing that yellow non-contact jersey. You got Jerick McKinnon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, number 3 on the list. And you also got Deneric Prince, who has been receiving a lot of praise in training camp so far. You also got LaMichael Perrine and Jerrion Ealy. Jerrion Ealy has kind of been switching back and forth with the Chiefs with running back, with receiver, and now back at running back. So he's a very interesting name at the running back positions. Maybe he gets an opportunity. We'll get back to Prince in a moment, but just looking at that running back core alone, I said a year ago this time, I would love to see a 1-2 duo with Pacheco and McKinnon, and boy, did that deliver. Obviously, it was not, it wasn't like Jamal Charles and Thomas Jones, but given how this offense operates, those two guys did an outstanding job in their roles. And I'm very curious to see how the Chiefs try to utilize that in the regular season this year. Obviously, Isaiah Pacheco will not be playing in the preseason game this Sunday because he's still wearing that yellow non-contact jersey. So we'll have to wait a little bit longer. Maybe we might not see Isaiah Pacheco at all for preseason games, but it has been noted that he will for sure play that week 1 game, which is a little less than a month from now, 29 days away to be exact, at least on the live version. Some of you guys might be listening on a Thursday, so it'll be 28 days by then, but nonetheless, Pacheco will be ready for that week 1 game against the Detroit Lions. There was also another report that came out that Kadarius Toney will also be available and playing with the Chiefs for that week 1 game against Detroit. So some good news there. I forgot to mention that on the rundown. But yeah, some good news with the Chiefs with their injuries to Pacheco and Toney, 2 very key guys, 2 newcomers last year that stepped up and made some big plays, especially in the Super Bowl. So good to see Pacheco and Toney expected to play in Thursday night's game against the Lions in early September. All right, speaking of Kadarius Toney, might as well just go there right now and look at the receivers. Kadarius Toney, you have him as a 1. So the Chiefs have 3 starting receivers listed on here because they no longer carry a fullback. Burton's moved on to the Denver Broncos. So the Chiefs no longer have a fullback here. I'll get into that in a moment because I do think that's very interesting. You look at the receivers right now. Your 1s are Toney, MVS, and Sky Moore. Your twos are Richie James, Justin Watson, and Rashee Rice. Obviously, Rashee Rice was drafted in the second round this past April. And then your threes, you got Justin Ross, Amir Smith-Marset, and Nico Remigio. Then behind those guys, you have Ty Freifogel, you've got Ty Scott, Cornell Powell, and also no, that's it right there for the quarterbacks. I think I made an Ty Scott, yeah, and Kekoa Crawford. Forgot about Kekoa Crawford. Yeah, a little hard to read on the depth chart here. Not as organized as I'd like for it to be, but we'll do with it. Yeah, those are your receivers right now. So I guess my immediate reaction to that is Justin Ross not in the top 6. Is that anything to be worried about? Perhaps not. Keep in mind, this is the depth chart that was created on August the 8th. So nothing too crazy to really make a big deal about. But Justin Ross, at the same time, is a guy that's received a lot of hype so far in training camp. So I'm curious the decision to have him, not even with the 2s, but with the 3s for the wide receiver depth chart there. Listen, there are a lot of interesting names here. Tony, MVS, Sky Moore, Richie James, Rashee Rice, Justin Watson, Justin Ross. I just named 7 receivers right there. All 7 of these guys kind of have a really interesting backstory to where they are right now. Some of these guys like Tony, Richie James, Justin Ross, they're coming in with a lot of hype, a lot of expectations that they will do well and do better. I mean, these are not household names per se. Kadarius Toney, okay, sort of. The expectation is he can be like a Tyreek Hill if he stays healthy. Pat McAfee was saying on his show that this is a guy that gets compared a lot to Kadarius Toney, or to Tyreek Hill. But he's got to stay healthy in order to be able to get that comparison, that full-on comparison there. Richie James did some good things with the Giants last year. Didn't even put up that big of a number, and he was still their main pass catcher last year from the wide receiver area. But what if he comes to a place like Kansas City where, his speed suits this offense more? How would he do? How different would he be? So we might see that. Sky Moore, I think, again, his potential is interesting. We didn't see much of him because he was stuck in a situation where MVS and Juju were the starters last year. And not just that, obviously, Travis Kelce is your main pass catcher. So it was already hard for Sky Moore to get involved with the offense. But when he did get involved, he did some good things on the offensive side. Special teams, I know, not so good, but he did come through huge in that AFC Championship game with a huge return that helped set up an eventual field goal, which also did contribute with Mahomes' big gutsy run right there, drawing that penalty flag as well, which I know Bengals fans think was not fairly called, but hey, Bengals fans are going to cry about a lot of things. Go figure. So the wide receivers, Justin Ross being a 7. So could the Chiefs carry 7 receivers because they no longer have a fullback, or would they rather have an extra lineman, or would they rather have an extra tight end? I think now is a perfect segue to go to the tight ends, where you have Travis Kelce, no surprise, as your starting tight end, Noah Gray right behind him, Blake Bell right behind, and Jody Fortson in there as well. And then you got guys like Matt Bushman, who did very well in last year's preseason game, but unfortunately suffered a broken clavicle injury in that preseason finale, which he was playing so well against Green Bay. And that sidelined him for the entire season. You also have Kendall Blatton, Isaiah Gabbings. I mean, those guys are kind of project guys. It might be an uphill battle for them, but could the Chiefs go with 4, maybe 5 tight ends because they don't have that fullback position, and one of those guys serve as a fullback? I can't remember his name. Let me see if I can pull it up. The Chiefs 2006 roster, because the Chiefs had a fullback that year who went down with an injury. Chris Wilson, that's who it was. Chris Wilson got hurt that year, and I think the Chiefs they put a tight end. It wasn't Jason Dunn. Boy, they put somebody back there in place of Chris Wilson that year. That was also the year Trent Green got hurt and Damon Heward played some games filling in at that quarterback position. So Yeah, I can't think of the tight end. I can't find his name on Pro Football Reference, but I remember the Chiefs used a tight end in that situation when they were in need of a fullback there. So very curious to see how that goes. Offensive line, real quickly, no surprise with the starters: Smith, Tooney, Humphrey, the other Smith, Trey Smith, and Jawan Taylor. The backups, just gonna go left to right here. Prince Tega Wanagu. Mike Caliendo been around the block for a little bit. Nick Allegretti been around a little bit as well. Darian Kennard drafted last year. Lucas Niang, who did very well, I thought, as a rookie in 2021. Remember, he didn't play his actual rookie year in 2020. He opted out because some players, or not, I shouldn't say some players in general were given the option to opt out if they were not comfortable participating in football during the pandemic. So Lucas Niang did opt out that year. He did play in 2021, played very well. If you guys remember, that was a rookie offensive line from center right guard to right tackle with Creed Humphrey. But unfortunately, we never saw Lucas Niang in the starting role for the Chiefs last year, and a lot of people wanted to see that happen. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon with Jawan Taylor, but could a guy like Lucas Niang still play more? And listen, I'm wondering with Matt Nagy's creativity, could we see more of Lucas Niang where he does come in as an extra offensive lineman to try to help out the Chiefs in that area there? So we'll see what they decide to do with that offensive line. And then you got some guys behind Wanya Morris, who the Chiefs drafted this year. Sebastian Gutierrez, Austin Ryder, been around for a little bit. Jerome Caravan, Jason Godrock, Anderson Hardy at center, at right guard. But some of these guys, they're versatile and they can play multiple positions there. Defensive line, George Karlaftis and Mike Dana are your defensive ends. Your defensive tackles, Chris Jones and Derek Nani. Yes, Chris Jones. This was a big shocker to Mike Florio, but Chris Jones is under contract. He's still with the team, so he is considered a starting defensive tackle. Then the backup defensive ends, Ominihu and Malik Herring. Then you got Daniel Wise and Danny Shelton as the backups. Danny Shelton, again, a guy that I'm very curious to see this preseason to see what he can do. He came in late last year for the Chiefs, didn't really get a chance. So this year he's got a full training camp, a full offseason, all that good stuff to try to understand Spags' defense a little better and has an opportunity to prove himself. Then with the threes, Joshua Kendo and Felix Anodika Uzama. So a surprise there, FAU in number 3. Not a big surprise. George Karlaftis was a backup, I think a 2 with the initial unofficial depth chart last year this time. I remember Patrick Mahomes was, I think, like a 3rd string quarterback in the first depth chart behind Tyler Bray. Remember Tyler Bray? Did great at Tennessee, but hardly played in the NFL. The only game he played was the same game where Mahomes made his NFL debut against the Broncos, and he did not do well in that game. The Chiefs yanked him and put Mahomes back on the field because the Broncos tied the game. And obviously Mahomes did his thing where he led the Chiefs to a game-winning drive there. But anyway, so FAU being a number 3 on the depth chart, not anything I'm sweating about, nothing to make a big deal about. Tershawn Wharton to be a number 4 defensive tackle on the depth chart, that was a surprise to me. I know he was a little inactive with his injury, so he just kind of got back into the swing of things. Maybe they put him there, and eventually he builds his way up on the depth chart as he gets more reps and plays in the preseason games, perhaps. Truman Jones and BJ Thompson, your rookie defensive ends as the number 4. Matt Dickerson, by the way, the other defensive tackle there. Chris Williams, also part of that defensive tackle depth chart as well. Linebackers, obviously a big strength of yours right now with Willie Gay, Nick Bolton, and Leo Chanel, and obviously right behind them, Drew Tranquill, who was one of the best pass coverage linebackers in the NFL last year while playing with the Chargers. Now coming over to Kansas City, we'll see what he does. The other backup linebackers, at least with the 2s, Jack Cochrane and Cole Christensen, and you also have Cam Jones, who is part of that linebacking corp as well. Quarterbacks, mentioned McDuffie and Snead. Behind those 2, Josh Williams and Jalen Watson. No surprise there. You got a lot of young guys here. You got Boydo, Nick Jones, Haliasi, I believe is how you say his name, and you also got DiCaprio Boodle. Those guys are your quarterbacks. You also have Lamar Jackson, Reese Taylor, Anthony Witherstone. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rookies and 3 second-year players. L'Jarius Sneed, really the only veteran on this cornerback group here. And this is not a very old guy either. This guy was drafted in 2020. So a lot of youth at that cornerback position. But some good youth there. We saw McDuffie do some good things in coverage. Statistically, did not thrive. Williams and Watson did very well last year, especially in that AFC Championship game against Joe Burrow. I know a lot of Bengals fans love to use the excuse that Joe Burrow was missing 3 offensive linemen, but the 2 interceptions that Burrow threw had nothing to do with bad offensive line play or a pass rush. Those were just 2 bad throws and 2 great adjustments made. Well, first of all, Jalen Watson was the one who made that big adjustment with that pick. And then the 2 rookies last year, now they're second-year guys. Brian Cook, he tipped the pass to Josh Williams, who came away with the pick. So that was cool to see last year. Speaking of Brian Cook, you look at the safeties. Justin Reed and Brian Cook are your safeties. Obviously, Cook filling in for Juan Thornhill, who's moved on to the Cleveland Browns. You got Mike Edwards, who came in the offseason. Shamari Connor, who the Chiefs got in the draft this offseason. Deion Bush, who came in last year as a free agent from Chicago. Anthony Cook also. You also got Isaiah Norman, a rookie in that safety backfield. So some interesting names in that depth chart as well with safety. A lot of young guys. A lot of young guys. You know, guys like Justin Reed, L'Jarius Sneed, Deion Bush. These are going to be some of your key leaders here when it comes to just the veteran presence. And then you got a lot of young guys with some great talent, like Jalen Watson. You know, he's come through in the clutch a couple of times. Josh Williams as well. What if Trent McDuffie steps up and has a season that a lot of people hoped that he would have had last year as a rookie if he stays healthy? That'll be good to see from Trent McDuffie for sure. All right, the last position group, the specialist. Okay, punter Tommy Townsend, kicker Butker. Townsend also serving as a holder. James Winchester, your long snapper. No surprise there. I guess, I mean, I don't know if this was a surprise per se, but I also don't know if there was like a clear-cut favorite for the return specialists. So the Chiefs have some guys here they're experimenting with. Let me just say, guys that are not on this return specialist depth chart, like Justin Ross, he's been returning some punts and kickoffs. Sky Moore has been involved with that. So has Kadarius Toney. In fact, I think Toney tweaked his knee on a return in day 1 of practice, I believe, if I'm not mistaken there. But in terms of the guys that are on the depth chart, you got for punt returner, you got Richie James. Behind Richie James for the punt return spot is Amir Smith-Marset and then Nico Remigio. For kick returner, you got Deneric Prince, the rookie. I mentioned him earlier with the running backs. He's number 4 on the running backs depth chart. He could maybe do some things at both running back and as a kick returner in these preseason games, and that might be enough to get him on the 53-man roster. So we'll see what he does with Dave Toub's unit here. I know the past couple of years, special teams has not been consistent, but in general, Dave Toub's return guys have done very, very well since he's been with the Chiefs in 2013. Richie James, right behind Prince as a kick returner. So Richie James listed as the number 1 punt returner and the number 2 kick returner. And Amir Smith-Marset is the number 3 kick returner and also listed as the number 2 punt returner. So some interesting names there. Deneric Prince only handling kick return duties for now, or at least on the depth chart. And Nico Remigio not on the kick return depth chart, but on the punt return side of things. So that is your depth chart for the Chiefs. So some interesting things to go around there with the whole return specialist there. Listen, obviously we talked more about offense and defense. I know, you know, so many people, when they think of Chiefs history with some of the notable return specialists, guys like Tamarick Vanover, Dante Hall, Tyreek Hill. I would even say Nile Davis. I would even say, who's the quarterback the Chiefs drafted a few years ago? His name escapes my mind right now. I think Tremont Smith. who didn't have a kick return touchdown as a Chief, but he did have two very solid big returns that helped the Chiefs offense a couple of times. The Chiefs just, you look at the kick returners right now in the punt return, you don't have that big clear-cut guy. Maybe Kadarius Toney is that guy. I don't know. Right now, Kadarius Toney is not available. So we'll see what happens with that when KT returns, because I would be very curious to know if KT is going to participate in kick return duties this year. All right, see you guys in the comments. I'll get to those very shortly. So bear with me here. A couple of the things that I do want to get out of the way. So the Chris Jones update. Adam Teicher of ESPN, by the way, had a very odd comment he made about Andy Reid. He was on Sports Radio 810, and I guess the topic of Andy Reid's grandkids crashing his press conference came up. And Adam Teicher said that, those were Garrett Reid's kids, and Garrett Reid is on staff. Folks, Garrett Reid, unfortunately, died of a drug overdose in 2012. Garrett Reid was never a member of the Chiefs coaching staff. That was Britt Reid. But as someone who covers the team for as long as Teicher has, you got to know that kind of thing. So I just had to get that out there. I just thought that was completely unprofessional. And just I don't think he did it intentionally, but still, you got to be way better than that. I mean, we're talking. Garrett Reid, unfortunately, again, died of a drug overdose, so that was just weird for Teicher to get that wrong. But Teicher did have a little bit of an update in an ESPN article with Chris Jones, quoting Brett Veach, the general manager of the team, essentially saying, "Hey, look, it'll get done when it gets done, but we're very optimistic he'll stay." And Veach made a point that he wants Chris Jones to retire a Chief. Meanwhile, Chris Jones, he had that Instagram story where he's quoting a Kevin Yates song, and it's the lyrics were "All good things must come to an end." And then he also liked a tweet that talked about how if the Chiefs need to pick and choose, it might be a better idea to prioritize interior offensive linemen, guys like Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, because protecting the franchise quarterback holds more weight than a defensive tackle. Oh, by the way, that tweet was mine. Yeah. So that's nice, I guess. So Chris Jones liked my tweet. A lot of people kind of made a big deal about that. I was not expecting that to happen, but nonetheless, it is out there. Let me see if I can pull it up here on the screen share. Here, let me get that on there. Here we go. Yeah. So if you go to Chris Jones' Twitter account and you click on the likes, yeah, you see my tweet right there from 6 days ago now. Yeah, I don't know, man. Why would you like that? One of two reasons. When he does resign, he's probably going to dunk on me, and I'm here for it. The other reason, I guess, if he gets traded, which people are not dismissing at this point, I guess people are going to blame me for a potential trade. I don't know. But nonetheless, he chose to. It's been very interesting just seeing his activity on Twitter and Instagram lately. Like, he knows that he'll tweet things like "wakey wakey," and people go crazy, like, "Oh my God, he signed," or something happened. So people are not quite sure how to handle Chris Jones' social media activity recently. But nonetheless, I mean, here he is doing all these things and trying to do these the whole cryptic thing. I've even seen some people compare him to Tyrann Mathieu and some of the things that he was doing on social media that people did not approve of. So I'm trying to pull up the training camp schedule here. So the final practice in St. Joe is next Thursday, August the 17th. Okay, here is my rule of thumb here. The Chiefs wrap up the St. Joe portion of training camp that next Thursday, the 17th. I want to say 48 hours, but I'll give it 72 hours. If we don't see Chris Jones Friday, Saturday nor Sunday after the St. Joe portion. And again, I don't have the Chiefs schedule in front of me, what their week 2 preseason game is. But if Chris Jones is not with the Chiefs after that whole deal, so let me just pull up the schedule quickly. So again, the 17th is when they wrap things up. The 18th, that's a Friday. The 19th is a Saturday. They'll go visit the Arizona Cardinals. And then the 20th, they'll obviously be back. If Chris Jones is not with the team by the 21st, which is a Monday, I will hit the panic button. I'll say, okay, the St. Joe portion is over. Where the hell is Chris Jones? Why the hell is he not in camp? So my magic date right there is the 21st. We are less than 2 weeks away from August the 21st. If Chris Jones is not with the Chiefs then, that is my hit the panic button date right there. The 21st. I don't know. You guys tell me. I thought they would get a deal done by now, and I thought it would also lead to getting DeAndre Hopkins. So far, neither have happened. And we keep being told that the Chiefs are optimistic. The Chiefs are optimistic. The Chiefs are okay. Well, we heard that all summer long that they would get it done beforehand. No, has not happened yet. So we're still waiting to see what the Chiefs are going to do there, and when we could see a deal get done. All right, a couple other things I want to get into here before I get into your guys' comments. An update on our good friend Chiefsaholic. Look at this. So this is from Jonathan Cooper. Fun fact: Jonathan Cooper, a college classmate of mine. So good to see him doing some good things out there in the journalism world. Breaking from Jonathan Cooper. Federal prosecutors have requested new evidence be added in the case of Xavier Babudar, aka Chiefsaholic. The evidence includes a surveillance photo of a bank robbery in El Dorado Hills, California on July the 3rd, and a surveillance photo of a bank robbery in Nevada on June 8th. Folks, this guy took off his ankle monitor and bolted out of Oklahoma in, I believe, March. And after March, he went and robbed more banks. This is a guy who already collected hundreds of thousands of dollars from various cities, robbing banks, allegedly, I guess. We got to use that word. And after, getting arrested, getting caught, and taking off his ankle monitor and running away, he went and robbed at least 2 more banks, allegedly. I'm impressed, man. I don't understand that. Like, dude, this is like Grand Theft Auto 5 shit. What are you doing, man? Boy, the story is just too good to be true. Oh my god. I'll give it to this guy, man. There is no quit in this kid. There really isn't. Listen, I'm not trying to be funny about this, but and listen, I know the bank teller in Oklahoma. The story came out about her and how she essentially has PTSD from that whole thing. But I'm sorry, like, this is just funny at this point. How is it you're pulling this off nonstop? Like, how? This is like from a video game from Grand Theft Auto 5. I don't get it. I really don't get it. But this guy's got no quit in him. I'm impressed. I'm impressed, man. Good on Chiefsaholic. Okay, we got to get into this real quickly. So this is getting a lot of conversation, I should say, on the Facebook page. Eric Bieniemy, obviously the former offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs for 5 years. The entire time Mahomes was a starting quarterback for the Chiefs. Obviously, this is Mahomes' 6th year as a starting quarterback. His first with a different offensive coordinator. Mahomes, his rookie year, obviously only started 1 game. Matt Nagy was the OC there, but obviously Mahomes was not the primary QB that year. That was Alex Smith. So this is Patrick Mahomes' first time working with a different offensive coordinator as a primary starter. Obviously, Eric Bieniemy left Kansas City because he pretty much had to prove himself elsewhere because everyone else is too afraid to hire him because they feel like he is basically benefiting from Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes dominating that offense. Okay, well, he's in Washington now. Ron Rivera handpicked him. He's got full control of the offense now. Lo and behold, the word got out that Washington Commanders players are complaining to Ron Rivera, the head coach, about Eric Bieniemy and more specifically his intensity. By the way, what's his name? The clown on FS1, former running back, LaShawn McCoy. He had a field day with this. He did the whole "I told you so" and talked about cursing and all this bullshit and all this other thing here. Listen, let me just say something here because this kind of irritates me. It really does. So Commanders players are upset about what? That this guy, Eric Bieniemy, is yelling at them, cursing at them? Boo fucking who? Crying me a goddamn river. Who gives a fuck? Okay? You want to sit here and act like as a player you've never cursed before or anything else? Really? You want to sit here and play that game? And by the way, let's just say something about professional athletes. Listen, I'm not trying to paint a terrible picture and say all professional athletes are bad. Some of them have grown up and matured over the years, but weren't these guys the jocks in high school? Weren't these the guys that picked on the nerds at high school? I mean, maybe they didn't physically beat them up or anything, but at least picked on them or laughed at them or mocked them. Now you're upset because Eric Bieniemy is cursing you out? Cry me a river. Who cares? You're getting cursed out. Oh my God. For professional athletes who cry so much about fans having opinions online, well, I'm going to quote Willie Gay on this one. By the way, Willie Gay Jr. went on his Instagram and he called the Commanders players, quote, soft asses. Yes, soft asses. Listen, I'm not here to, these poor football players in Washington who have never won jack shit before. Man, Eric Bieniemy was hired by one of the best head coaches in NFL history and was eventually promoted to being an offensive coordinator. Now, was he the play caller? Probably not. Again, we don't really know who called the plays or who didn't. We've seen Bieniemy talk during games, like in between snaps, they'll show coordinators on the sidelines, or they'll show the quarterback that's sitting on the bench, waiting for his turn to come back on the field. Bieniemy, sometimes you would see him on camera, and you would see him saying something. I don't think he's just chit-chatting on there. He's got to be calling something. So who knows how much of the play calling duties were from Bieniemy, how much came from Reid. I will say this. My biggest pet peeve with this whole Eric Bieniemy thing is that whenever things were clicking, whenever things were working as great as they did on offense, who got credit for that? It was Andy Reid. It was Patrick Mahomes. It was Travis Kelce. It was Tyreek Hill up until he was traded. Those are the guys that everybody talked about when things were working on offense. But last year, for example, when the Chiefs lost to the Colts in a very low-scoring game, a very surprising offensive output or lack thereof from the Chiefs offense, so many people blamed Eric Bieniemy for that game. A lot of people pointed the finger because people don't want to point the finger at fan favorites like Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. No one wanted to blame them, even though Kelce dropped a pass wide open in the end zone at one point. So how does this work? Because from what I've seen on Twitter from Chiefs fans, and I think Chiefs fans need to own up to this, whenever things worked, those fan favorites got all the shine and the love. Whenever things didn't work, Eric Bieniemy got the blame. And only Eric Bieniemy. People did not want to blame Patrick Mahomes. People did not want to blame Travis Kelce. And listen, I'm not saying turn your back on those guys, but I think in all fairness, it's almost like that whole thing where, you take credit for things and then you don't when they don't work. I'm not saying Mahomes is like that. Mahomes is always taking blame whenever things go wrong publicly, and then when things work, he praises anybody and everybody around him. So I've just never understood this whole Eric Bieniemy criticism. I guess the way Eric Bieniemy is viewed, I just don't get it sometimes. Listen, me personally, I wanted him to go elsewhere to prove himself, not because I hated him and wanted him to go. I wish he was still here, but for the sake of his own like personal goals, this is what he had to do. And now here we are. Soft Commanders players are worked up because he cursed at them. Oh my God. What do you want me to do? You want me to take off the chin strap and the pads on your helmet, take off the helmet and pat you on the back? Say, oh, it's okay. I mean, listen, I'd be very curious to talk to Jason Dunn about this when he comes on the podcast next week, because he went from Dick Vermeil to not Andy Reid. He went from Dick Vermeil to Herm Edwards. Herm Edwards is very well known to be more soft-spoken and nurturing, whereas Dick Vermeil, and maybe not compared to Eric Bieniemy per se, but at least he's more intense. I remember when Eric Bieniemy was promoted to being the offensive coordinator in Kansas City. I remember BJ Kissel at the time, he wrote an article for the Chiefs website talking about some things to know about Eric Bieniemy. And one of the things he noted was that he's a very passionate guy, pretty much noting that he's a shouter. And I was like, okay, I mean, so what? Like, a lot of football coaches shout at the high school level, even at the middle school level, man. I remember playing, I didn't play sports in high school, but I played before high school. And, I may have been on the receiving ends of some colorful commentary there. And, it just made, as soon as my coach said something to me, I was like, whoa, I need to get the stigma off me. I don't want my coach thinking that way about me. And quite honestly, my parents were aware that he said that. I told them after the fact, and they're like, yeah, well, you got to step it up. I don't think they love the comment per se, but, there's a reason why they're my parents, and there's a reason why my coach was my coach. So I'm not so sure, what do you expect a coach to do? By the way, the day after when the Chiefs visited the White House, the day after when everyone went back to normal work, the Chiefs went back to do their thing. Eric Bieniemy went back to his team. Obviously, this was not a very long trip for Bieniemy because it's in the area of Washington, D.C. By the way, the White House visit has nothing to do with this. This is just the way I remember it. The day after the White House visit, a Commanders reporter, someone in the Washington media, put out a tweet or an X, whatever you want to call this now, put out a post that Eric Bieniemy lashed out at one of the players, dropped an F-bomb. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but he basically, let a player know that he dropped the ball. And Chiefs fans just had fun with that. They're like, yep, that's EB. That's the EB we know. Tyreek Hill shared an interesting. Do you guys remember that Sunday Night Football game against the Bills that the extended halftime because of the lightning delay? Which Buffalo just destroyed Kansas City in that game. Tyreek Hill shared a story on his podcast last offseason about how Eric Bieniemy, that entire week of practice, just lashed out at the entire offense, pretty much saying, hey, you let these guys kick your ass in your own home. It's like, man, I love that about a coach. That's what I want. I don't want a coach that is so soft-spoken and just basically says everything's okay and is going to be figured out. No. There's a reason why the Chiefs went to 5 AFC championship games, won 2 Super Bowls. Eric Bieniemy is a part of that. I know he's not the first reason nor the second or third reason as to why they do it. People point at Andy Reid, Mahomes, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill for all that success the Chiefs have had the past 5 years, but Bieniemy is a big part of that too. He may have not been the primary play caller, but this is somebody that would go out there and coach you up because he gave a damn. He's taking over a Washington team. And listen, I know Washington beat the Eagles last year, the team that came close to winning the Super Bowl. But, you finished below 500. You missed the playoffs. You got some things to work on, man. You really do. So good for Eric Bieniemy for pissing off these players, I guess, because that'll send the message that, hey, perhaps you got to wake up and step it up. That's why Ron Rivera handpicked Eric Bieniemy. It's funny. Ron Rivera he didn't come to Eric Bieniemy's defense when he was asked about this in a press conference, but then in another press conference, he kind of backtracked and said, yeah, listen, this whole thing was blown out of proportion. So who knows? I mean, a lot of Chiefs fans were upset that that Rivera did not come to Bieniemy's defense the first time, did a better job of that the second time, so to say. I mean, listen, Rivera's the same guy who lashed out at the media after one of the games in a post-game press conference about the criticism surrounding Carson Wentz. I mean, if you're going to defend Carson Wentz, you sure as hell better be ready to defend Eric Bieniemy. Listen, man, I don't have a second favorite team, but if there is a team, like if the Chiefs cannot win the Super Bowl this year, I want it to be Washington so bad. I really want Eric Bieniemy to hold two middle fingers up to all of the 31 other NFL teams that refused to hire him as a head coach over the years. Obviously, some teams did not need a head coach, but you get the idea. And just say, look, you missed out. And man, I think he can be a good head coach one day. He deserves that chance. He doesn't deserve to be getting the cold shoulder like he has for the past 5 years. I just think it's stupid. All right, before we get into your guys' comments, just want to let you guys know we have another sponsor here, Manscaped. They're a proud sponsor of the Chiefs Zone podcast. If you go over to Manscaped, they got so many great products on there. Go to manscaped.com. Check out their lineup of products there. My favorite is the Lawnmower 4.0. Hey, listen, gentlemen, we all have to do the below-the-belt shaving, the below-the-belt grooming, and we've used some other products before out there, not named Manscaped, that have created some accidental cuts. Those have happened, but with the Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped, they've got this really cool thing called skin-safe technology. It prevents below-the-waist cuts. In fact, ever since I've used it, never had one accidental cut, not once. So this is a really cool thing to use. Their skin-safe technology might be, in my opinion, top 5 best invention ever this planet has ever seen. Now, that's not the only thing they have. They've got the Weed Whacker. They've got so many great products. And I'll tell you this right now, Manscaped products in general are a bit pricey. So go to manscaped.com, get yourself the Lawnmower 4.0, the Weed Whacker, or whatever interests you over at Manscaped's website. But before you pay, use the promo code FARZINE20 because you will get 20% off and free shipping. Yes, that is 20% off and free shipping. You cannot beat that. 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code FARZINE20 at manscaped.com. Go to manscaped.com, use the promo code FARZINE20 for 20% off and free shipping. Hashtag shave your balls. All right. As promised, let's get to your guys' comments here. Let's start with Blake hitting leadoff. I can't lie, I was concerned when they signed Jawaan Taylor, and we thought he was going to be our left tackle. I was saying from the moment he was signed, I said, look, there's nothing wrong with paying a right tackle. So I'm glad, Blake, I'm glad he is going to be playing right tackle. I'm just not a big fan of moving guys around and giving them a position they're not familiar with. I know Orlando Brown dealt with that, but he's going to stay at a left tackle in Cincinnati. Bengals fans think he's Orlando Pace, so good luck with that. Brad says, my guy Anderson Hardy is the fourth center from Appalachian State. Hopefully he doesn't get cut. Yeah, well, he's got a bit of an uphill battle, if we're being honest about that, Brad. But hey, that's cool. You know somebody on the team. Justin says, everything I've heard is that Jawaan Taylor is better than Andrew Wiley. Andy has always loved having a top right tackle. Will be okay there. Yeah, look, I don't think it's, let's remember something. Orlando Brown Jr., your left tackle from last year, and Andrew Wiley, your right tackle from last year, those two guys gave up more pressures than anybody else in the NFL at the left tackle and right tackle spots, right? So it's not too much of an upgrade, but still, I would at this point put a rotten tomato instead of Andrew Wiley or Orlando Brown Jr. at this point. So I do have some expectations, though, from Jawaan Taylor as well as from Donovan Smith. I think they're going to be better offensive tackles. I think it's going to give Mahomes a lot more time to work in the pocket. And let's keep something in mind. Mahomes had his best year last year without Tyreek Hill and with two terrible offensive tackles. Not only did he win the Super Bowl, he damn near won the MVP unanimously. The one vote was just thrown in Buffalo's way because the voter just wanted to praise the Buffalo Bills medical team, which, okay, all right, that's your vote and do whatever you want with it. So he pretty much won it close to unanimously. Again, without Tyreek Hill and with 2 terrible offensive tackles. Justin also says strength of this defense is linebacker, arguably the best and most athletic, and we have had in a long time. Yeah, I would agree with this. I would say offensive line, specifically interior offensive line first, then linebacker. But I can see a case for linebacker, Justin. They can cover up bad defensive line play too by flying and filling gaps. Yeah, and I'm excited for Drew Tranquil, his coverage abilities too. Why aren't we hearing more from Felix Anudike-Uzomah in training camp? Dan's asking. Yeah, this is a really good question here. I don't think it's anything to lose sleep over or panic about, Dan. Keep in mind this. I said this earlier in the podcast. So George Karlaftis was not a starter on the depth chart early on, and we didn't hear much about George Karlaftis last year in camp. It is very common for rookies to not be part of the number ones, at least with Andy Reid's training camps. That's just kind of the way it's been. So I would at the very least bet that by the time the Chiefs play the Lions, FAU is going to be a number 2 behind Dana, maybe. Might even be a starter. Who knows? But he'll move up at the depth chart. There's no way he doesn't. I would be concerned if he doesn't, though, but I don't think that'll be the case. Blake is interested in seeing Deneric Prince in the preseason. Yeah, as a running back and as a returner, too. Those multiple duties. Curious to see how that goes. All right. Did you hear? Oh, yeah. Did you hear about Bashaud Breeland? I heard he made bail and immediately signed a multi-year deal with the Raiders. Yeah, so for those who don't know, Bashaud Breeland got into some trouble this week. Boy. Let me pull up the details because I don't want to misquote anything here. It's quite the story here. Arrested earlier this week, charged with driving a stolen car, possession of stolen firearms, and possession of marijuana. So, I mean, weren't you a former NFL player? You got some money in the bank. What are you doing robbing things from people? Come on, man. I don't get it. Dan says all these wide receivers have so much to fight for. It's anyone's game at this point. Yeah, like the wide receiver position, not a big strength. There's a lot of potential there and a lot of interesting names there. I'm very eager to see the final 53-man roster and specifically how that all goes. Did you see all the clip of our offensive coordinator drilling the uprights 2 to 3 times? Yes, I did see that with Matt Nagy. They're just having some fun in camp, which is good to see. You gotta let loose and enjoy camp a little bit, have some fun with all the intensity, the heat in the Midwest, all that stuff. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit, Robert. Oh boy, I love spammers. Okay. Mike Cox replaced Chris Wilson, I think a year or two later, Brad. Let me see. I think somebody commented on this a little later on. Yes, Ronnie Cruz. That's who I was thinking of, Brad. Thank you. Ronnie Cruz was the guy who filled in for Chris Wilson. No, I got this completely mixed up. Okay, so on PFR, it shows who played the most snaps at fullback. That was Chris Wilson. Okay, I remember this all wrong now. Now I got it. So Ronnie Cruz was the starting fullback at the beginning of the 2006 season. He got hurt in that Steelers game. Remember that Steelers game? The same game Larry Johnson pulled Troy Polamalu's hair, which was like the only Chiefs highlight of that game. But anyway, Ronnie Cruz got injured in that game, and then Chris Wilson came in, and he was the fullback for the remainder of the year. He was like the third string tight end for the Chiefs. Okay, thank you, Brad. That is what I was thinking of. Justin says trade 95. Oh boy. All right. Interesting. Again, Andy has always liked to have a veteran backup QB. However, Buechele's look good. Yeah, listen, I don't go too crazy for training camp highlights. It's just training camp. I was at training camp on Saturday, and it's just, to me, there's only so much you can really go off of. Yeah, it's cool to see guys score touchdowns. People cheer because they're close to the area where they're seeing the touchdown play happen. But man, ultimately, it's just you can't put too much stock in these kinds of things. You just can't. Chris Jones is a beast. There's no doubt about it. But let's not forget, last season was the first time he actually showed up in the playoffs. Okay, a lot of people are saying this, and I just don't think this is a fair criticism for Chris Jones. Yes, last year was the first time he had a playoff sack. But man, he's gotten in there and done some things. Like, he's disrupted the pocket. The Super Bowl 54, if Chris Jones is not there, the Chiefs don't come back and win that game. They just don't. They don't. The AFC Championship loss to the Bengals, like, he got to Burrow, put his arms around him. He just could not bring him down. He twice let him go, which just sucked because, man, it's just, of all guys, and Chris was beating himself up for that too. And if I'm not mistaken, I think those were both third down plays. It's been more than a year, forgive me, but I would have to go back and look. Not that I want to. Make that 9 robberies. Yeah. I don't know. I heard Lance Zierlein say something similar, Brad, that he is kind of a more old school, tougher coach here, and that he's that's just his style. Unfortunately, as soon as he caught us his first felony, he instantly became a Raiders fan. Oh boy. They train with LeBron. Dudes are soft. Remind me the last time the Commanders went deep in the playoffs. Yeah, no, that's a good point, Dan. I really wish they had a chance with Alex Smith that year, but unfortunately, he just got hurt. Justin says, "Give me Creed, Trey, and Bolton over 95. He's not worth losing over those 3." It's so hard because Chris Jones is such a rare guy at that spot, but I agree, man. You got to pick and choose. And when I say that, some people are offended. They're like, "Oh, so you don't think he's worth anything?" No, I think he's worth what he wants. It's just Kansas City can't pay everybody. They've drafted so well. I guess it's their own fault for drafting so well for so many years. They're pissed because EB's talking about the playoffs and they've already scheduled their vacations. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, he was basically an offensive game manager, Brad. Yeah, that's kind of a good point. Don't forget about L'Jarius Sneed as well. I'd much rather be able to re-sign him. Yeah, he's another guy that, he kind of, where does he fall into things when and if a Chris Jones deal gets done? Some of you guys are talking about the whole Redskins and Commanders thing. Not too interested in that. A couple more comments I'll read and I'll get out of here. Unfortunately, even if Washington won the Super Bowl, people would credit Ron Rivera and find any reason wasn't because, yeah, I hope not, man. That guy, I don't know why people don't want to give credit to EB. Makes no sense. I guess because he's a play caller now, you would have to. Justin raises an interesting point. Nick Sirianni never called plays for the Colts. Last year, you had some guys get head coaching jobs that weren't play callers. Mike McDaniel for the Dolphins, coming from San Francisco. The head coach for the Broncos, Nathaniel Hackett, last year. Listen, I know it didn't work out, but he still got a head coaching job, not being the play call. There were a lot of non-play callers that got head coaching jobs last offseason. Why not EB? Oh, 100%, Blake. Yeah, Buffalo's best shot is... Listen, I think they're still a top-tier team, but come on, man. You got to eliminate those turnovers. It's just Cincinnati's better than you. Kansas City's better than you. It's just, no. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand pro athletes that get involved in these kinds of things, but unfortunately, those things do happen, Justin. All right, I'm going to get out of here real quickly before I sign off. Reminder, Jason Dunn podcast, Monday, 8 o'clock Central. Before that, we do have some other things to address. So Sunday, obviously, we have a Chiefs game. I will do a pregame live stream Sunday at halftime. I will do a live stream. Sunday. They will be only on Facebook. The post-game live stream is going to be different, though. We will do a post-game live stream on Facebook and on YouTube. The post-game live stream will also serve as a post-game show for the podcast. So we will have podcasts back-to-back days, Sunday and Monday. So be ready for that. I'm very excited to get into that. We're going to start doing our game day live streams. Have not done that in quite some time. Last time was Super Bowl 57. So we're very excited to bring that back. Looking forward to talking to all of you. I'm going to use StreamYard. So I'd like for you guys to call in. I'm going to do it differently. Obviously, we're going to be doing some testing in the preseason, see what works, what doesn't work. So we'll see what happens on that. Hopefully you guys can be a part of that. I would love for you guys to call into the post-game show. That is a big part of the post-game live stream. So make sure you guys join me in that for Sunday after the game. All right, with that said, my name is Farzin Vasugian. Thank you for downloading this episode of the Chief Zone. If you guys haven't done so already, please go to SeatGeek.com, use the promo code Farzin for $20 off, and go to Manscaped.com. Use the promo code Farzin20, 20% off, and free shipping at checkout at Manscaped.com. Appreciate you guys once again downloading the episode or watching live or both. My name is Farzin. Talk to you guys later. Take care.